Hello and welcome to Dialogue, coming to you live from Beijing on CCTV News. I'm your host, Tian Wei. Last week, a video appeared online about a couple from China's mainland who let their child urinate in public in Hong Kong. The video purports to show them attacking local residents after they protested. Soon, a new version of the video also appeared, suggesting that the couple had used a diaper to soak up the child's urine and had later placed the diaper in a plastic bag. The video also shows them explaining to the crowd that they had been waiting for a long time in the queue for the public restroom. But since the 2-year-old could not wait any longer, they had no option but to let the child urinate in public. Later, one of the parents was charged for allegedly attacking people. Though she was released on bail, she has been asked to return and report to Hong Kong police in May. Now, you may dismiss this as a minor street confrontation and ask, what's the big deal? Why are we featuring this in Dialogue? However, believe it or not, this has led to a whole debate in Hong Kong and on the mainland about the impact of mainland tourists in Hong Kong, and it has even extended to the relations between the two. So, to understand more about what this incident means and its unexpected impact, I'm joined in the studio by Gregory Zhang, former president with the Seattle chapter of National Association of Chinese Americans based in the United States, and welcome to our program. And also we are joined here in the studio, Edward Lehman, managing director from Lehman, Lee and Xu. Mr. Lehman is going to approach this issue from a legal perspective. Later, we hope we're also going to be joined by an expert coming from Hong Kong. But before we go to the discussion, gentlemen, with the two of you, let's take a look at this background report.
This video and other photographs were shot in a busy street in Hong Kong's Kowloon district. The father is arguing with locals while trying to comfort his sobbing toddler when suddenly someone tries to walk away with the baby stroller. The fiasco ended when police arrived. Later pictures showed that the baby didn't poop on the street as her mother had placed a diaper beneath her daughter's bum. There is also no video evidence of the mother slapping a local man's face, as the journalist had reported. Days later, a well-known Hong Kong television journalist added fuel to the fire when she embellished the incident and criticized tourists from the mainland, calling them uncivilized. Commentators on the mainland retorted that taking video of a urinating child was more than inappropriate, and that's also what upset the father, who was then videotaped by another passerby trying to remove the cart from the first photographer's camera. On Sunday, the spat between Hong Kong and the mainland residents escalated further when about 30 locals in Hong Kong mimicked the pooing in a shopping mall. They even invited mainland travelers with children to poo with them. According to a Sina.com poll, the majority of respondents said they can understand the need for children to pee on the streets in certain situations. Some internet users say the uproar reflects the strained relations in recent years, as more and more Hong Kong residents are getting upset over the ever-growing flow of mainland tourists. According to the Hong Kong Tourism Board, mainland visitors accounted for 75% of last year's total. That's 41 million. The conflict has highlighted tensions between Hong Kong locals and mainland tourists. Many Hong Kong locals have attacked mainland visitors and described them as locusts, while some netizens from the mainland say the arrogance of Hong Kong people will make them think twice about visiting the region.
Well, that is the story. And the question is, gentlemen, Gregory Zhang and Edward Lehman sitting here with me, what is the big deal? Why has this small story, one would say, become such an internet sensation, and why are people both in Hong Kong and here on the mainland, so emotional about this minor story? Why? Mr. Lehman, your input here.
Yeah, I think it's a symptom of a larger issue, that this is finally, it's boiled over, and this one particular incident has just caught people's imagination. It seems so trivial, but it's really an outlet for people to be able to air their grievances on both sides. And I think we all have to take a balanced view, especially those in the media, to be able to make sure that all sides are heard on this situation. I think also there's this difference between freedom of the press in Hong Kong and what can be a journalist's right to take pictures and other types of things. So
we're going to go to some of the legal issues with you later. Grievances, what kind of grievances? Do you really agree with what Mr. Lehman just illustrated, that this has become an opening wound in a way, between mainland and Hong Kong in terms of the current relations? Mr. Chang.
Very true. This seems to be a small matter at first, because you have kids visiting a location and something happened. He or she could not stop it from happening. Nevertheless, because those people watching the event took pictures of it and then start an argument. And then, of course, netizens on both sides of the fence, from China, from Hong Kong, they use this issue as a starting point to argue about other things. So they are deeply rooted, I would say, a state of distrust to some kind, or different orientation to some extent to make this happen, making this larger than it's supposed to be.
This has already become so large that emotions on both sides has been growing out of proportion. Let me just brief you a little bit as to what happened after this incident had been becoming, or the video had become viral on the internet. There are those coming from the mainland on the internet suggesting, let's just bring all the kids to Hong Kong and let them urinate on the street. Of course, this is not right to do. And there are also those coming from Hong Kong suggesting on the internet chat room and say, let's all take photos of any misbehavior we see in any mainland tourists. And meanwhile, there's one Commerce Secretary, Gregory So Kam Lung from Hong Kong. He was saying, well, people need to be more understanding of the realities when he was making his statement, supposedly meaning that people in Hong Kong has to have more understanding about why some of the behaviors by the mainlanders are what they are. So eventually, this secretary had to come out several times to explain what he means because of the social pressure. And there were also internet calls in Hong Kong to ask adults to go to the door of this Commerce Secretary, his home door, to urinate in front of his door. Obviously, none of this is correct. No. And people are asking why adults are becoming so, in a way, hard to imagine already, in terms of the words they're saying, in terms of the calls they're doing on the internet, and in terms of their possible behavior. This is impossible for you to imagine from a, shall I say, legal society and also civilized society on both sides, Hong Kong and mainland. So, Mr. Lehman, what do you make of this ever-escalating, shall I say, steps and rhetorics coming from certain individuals on both sides? What does it really mean?
Well, it's almost a perfect storm with the situation. So you've got the internet where people are sitting back in the privacy of their own homes and in anonymity, taking pot shots at people who are public officials, who are journalists, who are whatever. And then you've got people that have a legal responsibility, like the police, in order to keep peace in a particular area. You've got 41 million visitors to a place that's got about 7 million people over the course of a year from mainland China. This is one small incident. So I think you've got a perfect storm of things that are coming together just with this incident. And I think we need to call for calm, and I think we need to call for all the facts before judge, jury, and executioner decides who was right and who was wrong in this particular case.
All right. Mr. Chang, if you allow me, may I just go through some of the questions with Mr. Lehman, since he's the legal expert here, about some of the aspects of this small incident. We do not know and we do not claim to know the whole story, because what we have is not necessarily information coming from the Hong Kong police, but rather information that is publicly available online from different versions of the video and also from media reports related to that. So what do you think, Mr. Lehman, after knowing all of this public information, about the punishment for the lady who happens to be the mother of the child urinated on the street? Is it too much or is it too little?
Okay. When I watched the video, which was the version I saw was about 6 minutes and 37 seconds long or 38 seconds long, there's a number of laws, and it's almost like a law school examination, the number of issues.
Tell me about the different layers of the law that they might touch on.
Yeah, step one, I mean, there is an ordinance in Hong Kong which is called Public Cleansing and the Prevention of Public Nuisances. In that, if an adult is charged with the care of someone under 12 years old, if they use the public place without a reasonable situation as a toilet or as a public place for a toilet, then that person can be fined up to 2,000 Hong Kong dollars and in prison for up to 3 months. But when you watch the video, there's so many different kinds of legal aspects, and like I said, it's almost like a legal examination question. What's happened right and wrong in this particular case? So she was indeed arrested. It did take 6 minutes and 37 seconds or some amount of time for the police to come on the scene, which, again, I don't want to second-guess the police, and I know they're very busy with a lot of different issues, but in Mong Kok, where it's very busy and crowded, you would imagine there'd be a quicker response time.
Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is?
The other thing is, with whether there's an issue about whether a journalist was acting rightly or wrongly by taking a picture of a young child, a video of a young child that would be half naked. So in some jurisdictions, and maybe in Hong Kong, I would say that could be considered child pornography. So is that right or wrong? And then if it's infringement of the privacy of the child or privacy of someone that's that age, that's also another legal issue.
And it also depends on how the journalist is using the material that he or she, if he or she is a journalist.
Right. Is it responsible or not responsible, and how is it brought into the public, and is it correct? So, I mean, all these legal issues. Also, with regards to the people who made what we would call in America citizen's arrest. Right. So they see this activity, they think that it might be unlawful, and they're actually holding those mainlanders from moving from the premises. That could be considered the tort of false imprisonment, and not allowing someone to even walk for 2 steps could be false imprisonment, even for a moment. And so all these things are taken into play. Whether there was a theft or not of the memory stick, and whether the father had the right to take that memory stick away from the reporter or whoever were taking these pictures. So there's a lot of legal issues. What we don't see in the reports is whether any Hong Kong person was arrested. We don't know that for a fact. We just know that the mother was arrested.
But why would any Hong Kong person be arrested, in your view?
Well, I mean,
if there were any possibilities for that.
Sure. Again, it could be the tort of false imprisonment by saying, hey, you committed a crime and you really haven't. And it could also be taking a picture of a child underage that's not fully clothed. It could be also assault. There was some issue about touching, whether they were touching the woman or the woman was touching the gentleman who was trying to stop her. So there's a lot of legal issues here. Now, I don't want to second guess the Hong Kong police, and I don't think people should. I think that they're trying to keep public order. They get to the scene and they have to make a decision based on very little information. We saw the video; they did not. Then they would bring in the mother, and she was arrested. Now, just so you understand, I mean, they have the right then to hold the mother for 48 hours, which I don't think they did. It's unclear, but the Hong Kong police do for the initial questioning. But the part about being arrested, and she was probably brought to Mong Kok police station, is a humiliating situation. So I can understand. And so she's fingerprinted, her pictures taken, and it's quite a.
There are a lot of complicated legal issues certainly involved there, and of course we would like to entrust the Hong Kong police to do their job, and we trust that they have the capability to do it right and fairly. But on the other hand, we also see different aspects of this story. One of the most important part, Mr. Chang, is obviously the so-called anti-locust movement that is going on in Hong Kong, which is mainly a strong attitude, negative attitude toward the mainland tourists. On the one hand, we all understand the mainland tourists, many of them have never traveled to the other places. And at this moment, the level of civilized travelers in China probably still need to be raised. In other words, they need further education in terms of polite behaviors. But what do you think about this movement that is going on somewhat in Hong Kong, some say? And what does it mean to, let's just say, the ties between Hong Kong and the mainland, particularly when it comes to the public, and also the possible tourism link between these two places? Mr. Chang.
When something like that happened in Hong Kong all of a sudden, people will look at the same issue from different angles. Some of them may have a hidden agenda of some kind. For example, being resentful of the mainlanders rushing to Hong Kong to take control of the situation, and also talk about one country, two systems. How would that end in the long run? Which system would work in the long run, and so on. And also, the interaction between mainland China and Hong Kong are very vibrant and strong. So Hong Kong's situation has been affected to some extent. The systems, the freedom of speech, their business running, and so on. So some people may have a fear to say things going on may not be going the right direction. So if that's the case, if they look at that point from a negative point of view, this issue happened, they look at it from a negative point of view. Possible?
Obviously, there are a lot of aspects we really need to touch on when it comes to discussion of the nature of this incident and what this means for the relations between Hong Kong and the mainland. And we are going to take a break, and after that, we're going to touch on some of the key points. We'll be back after this. Welcome back. You're watching live edition of Dialogue on CCTV News. I'm Tian Wei. With me in the studio once again, we have Gregory Inan Zhang, former president of Seattle Chapter, National Association of Chinese Americans, and also Edward Lehman, managing director of Lehman, Lee and Xu. And we are talking about one incident which went viral in Hong Kong and also on the mainland, which might also have an impact on the relations between the two. And Mr. Chang, let me just move forward a little bit about the so-called anti-locust movement. Certainly that has been one social, some say, movement for some people in Hong Kong against the mainland tourists. For example, they believe the mainland tourists have been buying their necessities, such as milk powder, too much from the market, that the local will not be able to have enough. And there's also the complaints coming from some of Hong Kong residents that mainland mothers going to Hong Kong to give birth to their child so that their child could have a Hong Kong resident card. And there are some of the others, for example, mainland child eating fast food on the Hong Kong subway, and that has been complained a lot. All of these has become public incidents and certainly have a toll on the relations between Hong Kong and the mainland. But I want you to help us to understand this. What exactly is the mainlander here in China upset about when it comes to Hong Kong, some people in Hong Kong making a big fuss about this?
Well, throughout the years, of course, people in China have established their habits, and something they've done on a routine basis. Once you get into different territory, you do not know the rule of law and also the customs. So
that's cultural differences.
Yeah, there's a possibility that you think you have done something right, but the other side says you have done something wrong. But I do believe the Chinese proverb, 入境问俗, you get in new territory to follow their customs. As a guest,
when in Rome, do as Romans do.
That's as a guest, as a visitor.
Right.
If Hong Kong says you cannot do such and such on the street in the public, that's the rule to follow.
The other thing is very interesting because one of the reasons why people from the mainland feel close about Hong Kong is what the mainland has been doing over the past few decades since Hong Kong returned to the motherland. A lot of the times, many here in the mainland consider that it has been making quite an effort in order to maintain the vitality of the economy, for example, in Hong Kong, and also in order to promote the ties between the two sides. For example, China has been promoting this IVS program, which is Individual Visitors Service Program, to let more individuals visiting Hong Kong, certainly, which means could boost the Hong Kong economy. But the Hong Kong people, some of them have been arguing, why would the mainland always have this so-called benefactor mentality, thinking that they have provided us with the food and the jobs? We do not feel that they have necessarily done that. So what do you think about these two different perspectives on this issue?
Let me, first of all, I do not believe whether it's tourism or exchange of ideas and so on would benefit on the one side only. Because when you have people from mainland China to visit Hong Kong, it's not just a big spender as such. You also learn the tradition. You get to know more about what happened in Hong Kong. You may bring back with very good impression of the place you have just visited. This is also true for people who visit Taiwan. So on the other hand, with the backing of mainland China, Hong Kong become much larger in its movable possibilities. For example, to have more employment possibilities, more career development, so on. So it's a mutually beneficial thing. It's not one side spend money, the other side benefit the other side. It's not true. They have to look at the issue on long term and knowing that this connection between the two is essential. Hong Kong's existence will benefit China, mainland China, and vice versa.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. And I think, I mean, Hong Kong has gone through waves and since the time I've been here. So at one point, I mean, it was the 1980s that Japanese tourists were coming and there were issues with them. And then Europeans in the 90s. And when it was a handover, then there were issues about different people being there that were had visas or didn't have visas. So, I mean, this is just, I think we have to pull back, look at it historically. I think that everyone's going to really benefit from this. I mean, I look at our own country, which is the United States. We had only one group of people that were eliminated from being naturalized, which were the Chinese, many of them coming from Hong Kong and Guangdong province, but the Anti-Chinese Immigration Act of 1888 to 1941. And so these kinds of things are historically have happened in the world, and I don't think we want to just get all stuck on this one particular issue in this one particular region.
Right.
These are just growing pains with people traveling. And
well, let's see how it is being portrayed also from the Hong Kong perspective, if there's a perspective like that. And we are joined through satellite by Dr. Li Hui, Associate Professor from the Faculty of Education with University of Hong Kong. Dr. Li, thank you for patiently waiting to speak. Mr. Li, would you help us to understand a complaint also that I read from South China Morning Post today, for example, whose name is Alex Low. It's a commentator writing for the newspaper. He was talking about the misbehavior that was done by that mainland child on the street of Hong Kong actually has also been the misbehavior of quite a number of other people, both from Hong Kong and also from other countries, when they do not be able to find the public toilet easily on the busy street. So why people are picking this issue against the mainland, people are asking. What is your view here?
Yeah, but it's a very good question. Yeah, this kind of misbehavior could be observed all over the world rather than Hong Kong. And not only mainland China people did that. I also observed something in Paris like that. And why this happened as a very significant incident in Hong Kong, this is because there are some underlying tensions between mainland Chinese and Hong Kongese in the past years. As you know, we opened the door to mainland China people, and every day there are thousands of people coming across the border to shop at Hong Kong, where we didn't expect that there are some limit of capacity of Hong Kong city. For example, the average Hong Kong people, they want to keep their daily life not disturbed by these people, and they want you as a guest. As I agree with Mr. Zhang, we have a Chinese traditional virtue that is, when we visit other peoples, we be a good guest.
Right.
But in the past years, so many misbehaviors and misconducts are observed and are emphasized by media and the public. This has facilitated the conflicts and tensions between two sides.
Why has it, you use the word emphasized by the media and some in the public, the misbehavior, shall I say, personal misbehaviors of some of the mainland tourists? Of course, what they're doing, some of them are not correct. But on the other hand, why, quote unquote, emphasize? What do you think can be the root cause?
You know, in Hong Kong, we have a free market of media, and every newspaper and media have their own positions, political positions. Some media and some newspapers, they are very against mainland China, so they deliberately pick up some bad stories or misconducts, misbehaviors, all the negative sides. They want to emphasize. That's what I saw. Because I'm living in Hong Kong for more than 17 years, I read newspaper every day. I found that even the same thing could be interpreted in very different ways by different media. That's quite interesting.
And therefore, Dr. Lee, another interesting thing is that we see Hong Kong not only public sentiment on this specific minor issue, but also on the rights of Hong Kong versus the rights of that's being illustrated in the basic law of Hong Kong SAR. We also see the possibility of discussing so-called direct election in Hong Kong in the near future. And we also see the 2017 Universal Suffrage public consultation that is going on right now, which also has an impact on public sentiment. So can you help us to understand at what stage is the public sentiment now in Hong Kong? What do you consider, and many of the others, intellectuals in Hong Kong, decision makers in Hong Kong, as the constructive way to move Hong Kong forward while at the same time maintain good ties with the mainland, which of course is one of the necessity for Hong Kong in the future?
Yes, thank you. This question is very difficult to answer because the debate about the universal suffrage is ongoing, and every day there are new plans, new proposals. For example, today there are 2 new proposals coming out, and I can tell you that everyone in Hong Kong, if they are concerned about the future, they are thinking about the constructive way to solve the problem. And I have some reservations, but I'm very positive. I think scholars, for example, my colleagues in Hong Kong University, many scholars and professors in my universities have proposed some constructive ways to solve the problem. And the only concern, I think, is to educate the public. For example, I can see that some proposers, they don't care about the basic law. They just tell us what they want, but they don't look at the basic law. Basic law has some very clear regulations. For example, today at lunch meeting, I had a debate about the basic law, whether we should respect basic law, whether we should just.
And we got 10 seconds left. Mr. Lee, you want to wrap up?
consideration.
You want to wrap up with a conclusion? 10 seconds.
Yes. Okay. And I think this matter is about education. We need to educate our young generation in mainland China and Hong Kong to get them well educated and well behaved. I think not only Hong Kong but mainland China people need to be educated.
All right. Thank you very much.
This is my conclusion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Li
Thank
Hui
you.
from the University of Hong Kong.
Thank
We
you.
want to thank for your time, and we want to thank the time of our 2 panelists sitting here in the studio going through the details of the story, not just for it, but for the bigger impact it's having on the relations between the mainland and Hong Kong. Thank you very much, Gregory Yin Tsang, and also Edward Lehman. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. And thank you for watching. I'm Tian Wei in Beijing.